welcome to Ballot Meridian 2018 general election coverage on HOMTV. I'm Roya Burton. Joining me in studio today is Katie Fahey, founder and executive director of Voters Not Politicians, to tell us more about State Proposal 2 on the November 6th ballot. But before we go into more detail, let's take a look at the ballot language. A proposed constitutional amendment to establish a commission of citizens with exclusive authority to adopt district boundaries for the Michigan Senate, Michigan House of Representatives, and U.S. Congress every 10 years. This proposed constitutional amendment would create a commission of 13 registered voters randomly selected by the Secretary of State, four each who self-identify as affiliated with the two major political parties, and five of who self-identified as unaffiliated with major political parties, prohibit partisan office holders and candidates, their employees, certain relatives, and lobbyists from serving as commissioners, establish new redistricting criteria, including geographically compact and contiguous districts of equal population reflecting Michigan's diverse population and communities of interest. Districts shall not provide disproportionate advantage to political parties or candidates, require an appropriation of funds for commission operations and commissioner compensation. Now that we had a chance to look at the ballot language of State Proposal 2 before voters on November 6th, Katie, thank you so much for being here. First off, please explain what this proposal is specifically asking for voters.
Yeah, so this is really about an end to gerrymandering. Right now, every 10 years after the census, our district lines get redrawn. So who your state representative is, who your state senator is, and who your congressional member is. Those different lines actually change. But right now, the people changing those lines are the actual politicians in office. They do it behind closed doors with their political party, with their top donors, and with lobbyists to try and say, okay, which voters do we like the way they vote so we can try and make their votes count more, and which voters don't we like the way they vote so we can try and make their votes count less, all based on these lines. So we wanted to end gerrymandering, and the way that 6 other states have actually been able to do that is by establishing a citizens commission to do these lines instead, and they'll actually be required to do it out in the open. And as you were reading off the criteria, it's going to remove the ability to look at a voter and say, okay, you vote this way, so your vote should count more or count less. Everyone's vote should now count equally, which is really exciting. We actually see that this is a national movement. Missouri, Utah, Colorado, and Michigan all have this on the ballot on Tuesday, and we're hoping that the people of Michigan will want to vote yes on Proposal 2 to end gerrymandering.
And what do proponents say about this proposal?
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of people think that gerrymandering has led to non-competitive elections in our state. It's led also to the common sense things that we agree on, like that we need our roads fixed, that we want clean water, that we want our schools, helping our students succeed. Those things, no matter who's in charge, Democrats or Republicans, don't seem to be making a lot of progress in Michigan. And this might be one of the first steps to actually get more accountability, where our politicians are working more for us rather than lobbyists or special interests.
So what would you say is the overall process of redistricting?
Yeah, so right now, or the proposal?
The proposal.
Yeah, so for the proposal, it'll be a 13-member commission. It'll be 4 people from the majority party, 4 from the minority, and 5 independent or third-party voters. So likely it'll be 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 5 independent or third-party voters who will actually have to travel across the state to listen to the communities to say what makes sense for us, what other communities are like our community, and that we want a representative paying attention in Lansing and in Washington too. Because right now, with how crazy some of the lines are drawn, you have little chunks of parts of communities. So even if you have a representative who wants to do a good job, they're representing part of a township instead of a whole township, and that's what we want to get back to, is kind of the common sense way to do this. The other really great thing, I think, is any voter can actually apply to be one of the commissioners, but they can also go and attend any of the public hearings that they'll have to have, and they'll be able to see what data is being used and what decisions are being made as part of this commission. The other really important thing is that of those 13 members, at least 2 of the Republicans, 2 of the Democrats, and 2 of the independents all have to actually compromise and agree before any map can be adopted. And I think, unfortunately, right now, we don't see a lot of compromise happening in Lansing or in Washington, but this commission will actually be required to do that.
you've got young voters, first-time voters. So what would you say is maybe the most common misconception about this proposal that you would maybe give advice for young voters voting for the first time about, okay, how would you say this to a first-time voter?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that, that maybe this isn't the best solution. But we actually had 33 town halls in 33 days where we asked thousands of people in Michigan, what do you think would be a more fair system? We also looked at the 13 states that have some kind of combination of voters drawing the lines and not politicians, and learn those best practices to bring them into this amendment. Part of why it has to go in the Constitution is because politicians and lobbyists don't have any incentive to give themselves less power. They've actually been talking about this for years and years in Michigan, yet nobody has made any changes to actually fix the redistricting process. So that's why we're really excited to have the citizen-led ballot initiative, where thousands of us over the last 2 years have written constitutional language. We had to gather a bunch of signatures, and now it's on the ballot. But the only way for it to pass is if the people of Michigan vote yes on it. So it can sometimes be confusing, I think. This will be on the back of the ballot, too. So after all the candidates, make sure that you make it to those proposals. And again, if you like it, you want to vote yes. If you don't like it, you want to vote no.
And how do you think this process will fix district lines?
Yeah, so I think by a couple of reasons. So one, changing the criteria for how those lines are drawn. Right now we have suggested criteria, but a bunch of emails have actually been revealed from the previous redistricting process, because the League of Women Voters actually suing the people who drew the lines the last time, saying that it was done illegally. And in those emails, it shows, that partisan politics were coming into play and trying to, again, target voters based on whether they vote Democrat or Republican. The other thing is the transparency. So the fact that this will have to be done out in the open. This commission cannot meet behind closed doors. It would not be allowed to. So we could actually have accountability and see why these lines are being drawn. And also that they are required to go and listen to the community and respond to our needs and what we want. We're really trying to get back to, what is representative democracy? What does that look like? And how do we make sure when we go to the ballot booth that our votes are all going to count equally?
And how have the current district lines affected the results of previous elections?
So in Michigan, for about the last 70 years, we have about 50% of the people in our state who vote for Republicans, about 50% of the people in our state who vote for Democrats. Every now and then, one party will get more over the other, but depending which party has been in charge of drawing those lines, we don't see the representation matching. So for example, Democrats actually got more votes than Republicans a couple years ago, yet Republicans have 70% of our state Senate seats. So with less than 50% of the vote, one party has 70% of the seats, which gives them a super majority, which means they never have to compromise or even talk to the other side, even though the people of Michigan aren't voting the way. The people of Michigan vote 50-50. We are truly a purple state, yet we don't see that reflected in our policies.
And if this does or does not pass, what does this say about, the future of politics in the state of Michigan?
I think if it does pass, it'll be a really critical first step to restoring some of our faith in the democratic process. I think a lot of people right now do feel like in one way or another our elections are kind of rigged, and in some ways they're right. Gerrymandering makes it so that the will of voters are being suppressed, and both parties do it. So I think being able to have a process that now millions of people could actually participate in, because it's not being done behind closed doors, and a process where you could actually see how and why decisions are being made, where compromise is, expected and an expectation. I think that will really help a lot of people start to have more faith and hopefully feel like their votes do matter more than or as much as they should. If it doesn't pass, we have 2 more years before these lines are going to be drawn. In 2020, no matter what, these lines are being drawn. So they're either going to be drawn by politicians and special interests who are just looking out for their political parties, or they can be drawn by the actual people of our state who will be looking out for what does effective government look like in relation to our communities being represented.
And how did you come about, and how, your involvement and your role? And
Yeah, a great question. So I hadn't been in politics before at all. I was in the waste and recycling industry. And after the 2016 election, I had seen a lot of people for the first time get energized. And I saw that was really over Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. And when I was like, what do those people have in common? I really think it was their core message. So Bernie was like the political revolution, I think was part of his messaging, and Donald Trump was like drain the swamp. And to me, that meant a lot of people were inspired by these candidates who were like, the system isn't working, we've got to fix it. And seeing that, and then thinking about Thanksgiving dinner, my family has different political beliefs. We go kind of back and forth, and I wanted us to not focus on who voted for who, but more what is a way we could come together and actually try and fix something. So I made a Facebook post, not thinking it would lead to a constitutional amendment, that said, hey, I want to take on gerrymandering in Michigan. If you want to help, let me know, smiley face. And quickly, thousands of people that I had never met started hopping on board and saying, yes, this is what I want. I want to work for an organization that is nonpartisan, for a solution that'll actually like address some of the corruption in our system. And it's been really inspiring to see. We actually have over 14,000 volunteers and donors to the campaign, and they're from all 83 counties in our state too. It's just been incredible to see like how many people in Michigan want to make and see that they have hope for a better future in Michigan, are willing to take their time, their energy, their resources to do something like talk about gerrymandering for 2 years over coffee and lunch and dinner, and then also gather petitions, knock on doors, talk to friends and family about what does this solution, could this solution look like for Michigan? And it's really restored my personal faith in democracy and in how many people do care and want to make sure that they're voting in a way that is intentional.
And what piece of advice would you give to young people that might want to get involved in politics? What is something that you would tell someone?
Yeah, so I think don't come into it thinking you know all the answers. So I knew that I didn't like gerrymandering. I remember learning about it in 4th grade and just thinking that, okay, we know that the election process is rigged and we don't do anything about it. But I think if I would have come in and felt like, okay, this is the solution, this is the way we have to do it, I would have been missing a huge opportunity to actually engage with my neighbors and the people of Michigan. And so by going and actually asking people, what do you think is a solution, doing the research together, not feeling like I had to have all the answers, I think that helped bring in a lot more people and actually got a way better solution than anything I personally could have thought of. So I think if you are passionate about something, try and find other people who are passionate about it too, but be open to what the solution might be, because you might not know what good answers lie out there.
Katie, thank you so much. You're watching Ballot Meridian 2018 general election coverage on HOMTV. I'm Roya Burton.